Hi all, today I'll show you how you can manage Grafana users from Node-RED. Now adding users in Grafana and then adding them to an organization and then to a team is quite an easy process from the UI, but you have to do it many times, then it becomes quite cumbersome. Say you have multiple organizations Grafana and the customer asks you to add, let's say 20 users to one organization and then to a particular team. That's going to take a while, and if you don't make any mistakes. So for those situations, it's better to have a script that can support these operations. So instead of creating a conventional script in Python or Bash, we'll use Node-RED to call Grafana APIs, and then we'll automate the whole process. All right, enough talk. Let's see some examples. By the way, this flow is available for free download. So if you want, you can just download the flow and call it a day. Link in the description. So regarding the setup, I have Grafana running under a Docker container, and I also have Node-RED running under a Docker container. And in Grafana, I have two organizations. I have a team as well. I have 3 users. So what I want to do is I want to add another user to test org and to a team called test team. So imagine if you have like multiple of these teams and organizations, it can become quite complicated or quite confusing to add a single user somewhere using the Grafana GUI. So let's move on to Node-RED. Now, the first few APIs are standalone APIs, so you can just trigger them and see the results in the debug panel. And the next block is basically an automation API that goes through all of these things and sends out an email. Now, one thing to know is that to add a user as a server user, you'll have to use your username and password, the one that you use to log in Grafana. As far as I know, they don't accept a authentication token for these administration operations. So you'll have to add your username and password before hitting the APIs. All right, so let's see. So right now I have, if I go to users, I have 3 users. So my first API is basically getting the list of users and returning the results in the debug panel. And my user API is, so I've added my username and password in my API. And in your case, the IP address might be localhost because I'm running it in a Docker container. So I'm using the IP address provided by my Docker. And the API is API/users. Everything else is empty. So if I hit this, I get the list of users. So I have 3 users. I'm getting the list of those users. So this gives us the user list. So I can find users by email as well. So I'm hitting the user API, and in the user API, I'm also passing the email address that I want to look up. So it gives me all the information about that user. I can find a team by a name. So similarly, I have a team API to get the teams, and I want to get the team information by the team name. So I pass it in the search criteria in the API teams. And if I hit that, I should get information about that particular team. The URL, the name, any admin email associated to the team, which organization it belongs to, how many members it has, and so on and so forth. Similarly, I have few APIs to create to add user to an organization and add user to a team. All right. So in this API, I can add a user to an organization. So if you want to add a user to a particular organization, you can pass the user information in this function block. So this is basically the organization ID we got from the previous step, the password for this new user, the login ID, and the email for this new user and the name. So once you hit this, it'll add the user as one of the add this user as one of the users of the Grafana dashboard. And in the next step, we can also add the same user to a particular team. So let's say the user ID returned in the previous step is 4. You add the user ID here and post it to the team, and you can because this team 1, so the ID of the team, which is 1, and the members is the API, and this will add the user to the team. So essentially now what we want to do is we want to run through all of these steps in a single block and also send an email to the user. So give, let's say the username is Ash, the email is Ashish, my password is admin123, name, let's do Ashish Y, and organization ID is 2. All right, so we want to add this new user to this organization, but instead of going through these APIs one by one, we have created another block. Let's call this automation. And what it does is you'll have to pass the name of the user, the email. So in this case, I'm passing ashish@prescientdevices.com, the password for this user, the name, and the organization ID where you want to add this user. Now, what this will do is it'll hit the user API and it will add the user to the organization. It will fetch the new user, the ID of the new user that was created, and then we are using a link out and link in node to pass it to the next step, which is it'll create a team and pass the user ID to that team, and then we pass the user to that team using the post teams API. Once this is done, we are sending out an email and then changing some email parameters and then sending the email out using AWS. So you can use Gmail or whatever email SMTP provider you want to use. All right, so let's give it a shot. So we went through the process. Now let's check Grafana. And here you have the new user, Ash. Email is ashish@prescientdevices.com. Name is Ashish Roy. It belongs to the organization. And let's check the teams as well. And here we also added that user as a member of the team. So similarly, if you have multiple users, you can pass in a list of all the users and essentially have a loop that goes through each user, and you can keep adding the users in Grafana teams and the organizations. And here's how the email looks like. So this is the email that we formed here. It's basically sending your username and password with that email, with the link to whatever dashboard you want the customer to access. All right, so I hope this helped. So this is a quick way to add or manage users in Grafana. So you can also use Grafana APIs to duplicate dashboards, update data sources, and so on and so forth. The flow is available for a free download. Make sure to check the link in the description below. Thanks.